Well, the Pitt Panthers have yet another important game ahead. So do a lot of teams actually in the region. So pull over and grab a seat. Welcome to another edition of the Pitt Stop here, our podcast on Pittsburgh Sports Now. I'm, of course, Mike Asti, and I am joined, as always, by Mike Vukovcan. And Pitt coming off of the loss to Tennessee, but that's a major opponent. That's a home game. That's after the win against West Virginia in the backyard brawl. This one against Western Michigan, maybe you're thinking not the same fanfare, not the same excitement heading into the game, but a big game for Pitt nonetheless, and a lot of question marks going into this game as well. So, Mike, we also are going to have a very special guest here on this program as well. So I can tease Mac Lain of the ACC Network with ESPN will be joining us here a bit in the middle of the show, and then we'll touch on some odds at the end. But, Mike, you kind of touched on this on the website, on Pittsburgh Sports Now, about the quarterback decision right now, because Slovis was fine. I know you even touched on a commentary after the brawl that give him time, he'll be fine. There was a lot of positive there. He then got hurt. He had to leave the game. Patty went in. A lot of people love Patty, thought he could be good enough, played the bowl game last year. He's a vet, but he then suffered an injury in the game. And if you don't have both of them, what do you have for the Pitt fan? And if you are deciding between one of them, what do you do? What are your thoughts on that quarterback situation for Pitt in a game they got to win, but Pitt fans know from last year is no guaranteed gimme?
Yeah. Before I say something about the what I would do if I was Pat Narduzzi, I've heard mixed stuff about Keaton Slovis so far, and I've kind of been I haven't really understood it because I've watched both games. I went back and watched both games. I think the guy's played really well. And has he played great? No, but as we all know, you can't play great when players, and I'm trying not to put the blame game on, but it is a team game, especially at quarterback. You're impacted more so by that position than anything else. I think to this point, Pitt's offensive line has been average at best, and I think they expected that to be a lot more than average when you have five seniors returning. And I think their receivers have been, aside from Wayne, I think they've been below average. I really do.
Okay.
I expected a lot more from them, and I know I've heard the excuse me, I've been battling this cough for about 2 weeks now.
75% of Mike Vukovcan is still better than 100% of a lot of others.
I've heard this stuff about, he's not getting his passes away and he's waiting for receivers to get open. I'm not buying into that. I think Pat Narduzzi touched a little bit on it. I think he's been a victim of guys running the wrong routes.
I was going to say, is that a chemistry thing?
Yeah, I think so.
He doesn't know these guys that long, and obviously you don't have Addison there who can fit with anybody. He's still learning a new system.
And you have receivers learning a new system. I think he's expecting guys to be places, and I don't know that he totally trusts them yet to be there. He's been the victim of drops. I like what I've seen out of Keaton Slovis, and I think the biggest thing that I've seen out of him so far, the dude's been tough. We talk about sacks, but
5 times against West Virginia.
5 times, but that doesn't count the amount of times the guy's gotten hit.
Yeah,
I was at the game Saturday, and I kept pointing out to my son Luke when they'd show a replay up on the scoreboard. I was showing him, watch how he stands in here. He's completed passes, but he's not running. He's not doing a turtle. He stands in there and he completes the passes. And I don't know why people haven't been more excited by his performance. Now, get to your question, I would go with Derek Kyler, the third string quarterback.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. Number one, I think Pitt's better. No matter what happened last year, Pitt's a better team than Western Michigan.
You would figure.
On paper, they're better.
They are. And they were last year too, though, is what some would say.
Yeah, but they had some players last year. The quarterback, they had Sky Moore, who ended up being a second-round pick of the Chiefs.
Right.
They've had some playmakers. This year they graduated. Pitt's a better team.
Yeah.
Whether they win or not, we'll see. But the other thing is Pitt's season is going to be judged on how they do in the ACC. And when you're dealing with a couple injuries like they are, reportedly Slovis has a concussion. He had 2 of those at USC. I don't think that's something you don't mess with that. I think the guy sits down a week no matter what and give him a rest. And Nick Patty, it's obvious he hurt his ankle. He gutted it out. But his game is all based on mobility, moving around. And if he's not able to do that, how good is he to you?
Yeah.
He tried to play against Tennessee, and you could see that he was just a statue back there. They were bringing the house knowing that the guy wasn't going to be able to run. That's why you brought in Kyler from Dartmouth. The guy's played a little bit. He had a really successful season last year. I would trust him over the next 2 weeks to be Pitt's quarterback, and hopefully one of those 2 are healthy enough when they take on Georgia Tech on October 1st. I don't risk the ACC to try to get one of these guys back for a non-conference game.
Yeah, and obviously, when you're trying to be a conference champion, it is about the conference schedule, even though you want to win every game. And obviously, Pitt was thought to be maybe a dark horse team to the playoff before the season. Some did put them there. That might be tough after the Tennessee loss, but they're now a ranked team. Pitt is still clinging to a ranking as well. So it's not really a bad loss that Pitt suffered. These also were 2 very hard games, even though West Virginia's clearly not good. It's still a rivalry. They're very close to you. It was a rocking house. We were there. And then obviously Tennessee is now a good team that some are seeing is better than they've been in recent years. So Pitt got to win this at the end of the day, though, of course, no matter who's there. And you got to expect to win no matter who's there. The whole roster should be better than what you're seeing at Western Michigan, especially now with the draft pick no longer there. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here. It's the Pit Stop on Pittsburgh Sports Now. And before we get to our guest, Mike, I do want to kind of also talk about just the idea of playing this game on the road and playing a MAC team on the road. And I know Western Michigan fans are going to yell at us. We won last year. Pitt is the team looking for revenge. Pitt lost last year, regardless of where the game was played. And yeah, that's true. And you could certainly say that that is the game that ruined Pitt having a chance at the playoff even before they played Miami, because that would have been the worst loss of any of the top 10 teams vying for the spot. And this year, Pitt is better. Last year, Pitt was better, but lost. But just the overall thought process on a Power 5 team, a major conference team, a team that was just in a major bowl game, that had a Heisman candidate, that's looking to build more for the future than just the present. A lot of history there, and they want to kind of say that they're in that upper echelon, top 15 programs in the country at some point, and going to a MAC school. Playing a MAC school is one thing. Playing those games, that's one thing. Playing them on the road, not as common, even though we did see last week a lot of major power historic programs did suffer losses to teams that nobody thought would beat them, no matter what was going on with their current seasons.
Well, those games, you mentioned Texas A&M and Notre Dame. Those games were at home,
and Nebraska as well.
Yeah, if you lose them,
they were at home.
That's
right.
That's on you. If you
and like West Virginia's playing at home this weekend against Townsend, right?
Right. I just don't. I know this game was scheduled. These non-conference games are scheduled years in advance.
Right.
So this was before Kenny Pickett and everything happened last
year.
Sure. But I just don't like the idea of. I think Pitt, maybe in a special situation, maybe they do that. I don't mind playing other Power 5 teams or whatever, maybe some other schools that aren't Power 5 on the road. But I just see no good coming out of this. We've seen it a lot in the past, going back to the Dave Wanstead when Pitt was ranked. I think they played at Akron, lost. There's a couple other ones.
It looks worse if you lose on the road than even. I guess it looks worse at home.
It's gonna be a night game. It's gonna be a night game up there. Those fans are going to be all riled up. 7:30, Pitt coming in. It's a dangerous situation. I think Pitt should win, but I would hope in the future Heather Lyke steers away when she starts scheduling. From here on in, starts getting away from going to MAC teams on the road, because I think those are just recipes for an upset, which does a lot of damage to your program and the fan base.
Yeah, I mean, especially after last year, losing Tennessee's not the end of the world. Losing this game, regardless of where it's played, yeah, the ACC schedule is in front of you, but it would be a season wrecker in terms of what the hope of this season was supposed to be, because the whole idea in the offseason was you take a major bowl appearance, even though your Heisman candidate didn't play it because he was looking at the NFL, you take an ACC crown, and then you want to go and step it up even further. And if you have another one of these losses, and now you would have had 2 out of your first 3 games would be an L, it just wouldn't create that vibe, even though you can't force Pickett, obviously, to still be there. His eligibility was over, but it wouldn't be that vibe. It wouldn't feel good. You agreed to it. And yeah, even if you're not at where Pitt currently is and you were where they were a decade earlier or years earlier when this game was scheduled, not to say you want to thumb your nose at MAC schools, because certainly they can get victories, but in terms of scheduling, you don't need to necessarily go and we'll play you, but going on the road certainly is risky. You mentioned the Rocket House. Yeah, they get up or that game's close early. That'll be really, really tough for Pitt to deal with. Mike Vukovcan and Mike Asti, and we are now going to welcome in our guest for this edition of the Pit Stop here in Pittsburgh Sports Now. That is Mac Lain of the ACC Network and ESPN. So let me get him on here with us. Eric, thanks for joining us, man. And I will say, from one new girl dad to another, congratulations.
Come on, my man. We're almost there. So the due date is
not yet? Okay.
And so mom could pop at any time. So I'm
on wow.
We got a bunch of flights on standby if I need to get out of the studio.
Okay.
So we're good.
Okay. Hopefully not during this broadcast. Just tell her to wait about 10 minutes. Right. And Mike has all boys, so we're in a girl dad club of our own here. But Eric, we definitely appreciate the time. Mike, do you have you want to lead off here with Eric?
Yeah, Eric. I'm not sure Pitt is the beginning part of the schedule is a little unusual in the fact that most, the common thing for Power 5 teams is to play at least one, quote, cupcake to start the season. Pitt went the other route and started West Virginia. Despite what their record is, they're still, they're still a good program. And then they play Tennessee, which is obviously a good program. I'm not sure where the Pitt fan base, what their expectations are. They're 1-1. What have you seen from the Pitt program, and are you still as? Did any opinion yours change following these two games to start the season?
Yeah, I think one thing, there's a little bit of uncertainty, right? Just with quarterback and not knowing, is Slovis going to be okay? And the weird thing about college, man, I think college football is the greatest game in the world. But the one thing that I just can't stand is how we don't have to tell anything. Like, everything is so close to like NFL, you got to be on that injury report. If you're hurt, everybody knows what it is, what's the deal, when you'll be back.
You can smudge it like Belichick has in the past.
That's true.
But yeah, you got to put him on there.
But I just, we don't know. We don't know if Slovis is going to be the guy. From things that I'm hearing is they're hopeful he's going to play. And then on the Nick Patty side, I've heard that he might be out a couple weeks. So, if both of those guys are out, I mean, what are we doing? Are we going Wildcat and Izzy to the Hizzy is lining up at quarterback? So, I think from that perspective, it puts a little damper on the future and just looking forward. But losing to Tennessee, I mean, I think all your goals are still in front of you. That's an excellent football team. They're going to contend in the East and be right there with, Georgia and Kentucky kind of fighting for that spot. And Georgia looks really good. But, I think Tennessee right behind them. And so for Pittsburgh, everything's there, everything that you want. And of course, all your goals within ACC play. So to answer your question, yes, because of the quarterback, no, not because of the loss to Tennessee.
Eric Mac Lain joining us here. And I also got to ask you this in particular. Obviously, Pitt has a new transfer QB in there. Mike and I touched on Slovis and how he's played so far, but certainly a question mark moving forward and all the injuries. Pitt's running game emerged, but the offensive line was supposed to be the driving force that would be the key for this team this year. Some even said maybe one of the best in the entire country. And if Pitt was going to actually make Desmond Howard and others right and get him in the playoff, it would be because that O-line would protect and make learning a system even easier. But the offensive line has kind of struggled. They got beat up, and Dante Stills almost wrecked the game and had WVU almost win that game in an upset in week 1. Still kind of struggled in week 2. They basically have been average when they're supposed to be your best unit on either side of the football. Why do you think the offensive line has struggled so much now with a veteran group? What's happened? And how much is that needing to get fixed really Pitt's story this year that's kind of been under the radar?
Yeah, what's fascinating is I think that we are seeing how important Kenny Pickett's mobility from a year ago truly was. I mean, that guy was so great at pocket presence and could feel it in his, internal clock. He knew when to get out of there. He knew when to, extend the play or move the pocket, and even wide receiver quarterback communication. I mean, I have this notebook sitting right next to me. There's 3 or 4 plays that, there's corner cat and the wide receiver's not calling it out. Keaton doesn't see it, and he's getting blasted in the back of the head. That's not on the offensive line. Now, certainly there have been things that, I thought we would see better that they do, but a lot of it also is on quarterback play and not getting that ball out. So, I think it's going to be something that it's a process, and those guys are figuring each other out. They're getting better each week and keep finding that, silver lining there. But, certainly, my man, I think it's something where we probably didn't think there would be any question mark on that offensive line. And now we're kind of looking like, well, maybe not as good as we thought.
So then a little bit on Slovis's play, or are you maybe saying that Slovis hasn't played as well as maybe you would have expected to open up this year? Obviously, he's hurt right now.
Yeah, I would think just with an older guy that he would see things like that. I mean, there's some pass pro stuff against West Virginia. He's got to get the ball out quick. Tight end's wide open. Against Tennessee, tight end wide open. And instead, he's reading another side of the field, doesn't see the blitz coming. If they bring 6, we only got 5. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we can only block the guys that are in front of us. And so I think it's a holistic problem. I don't think it's just QB play or it's just offensive line play. I think it's all of us need to get on the same page and figure out what we're doing.
Thoughts on Izzy Abanikanda so far? Before the season, there was some wondering with new offensive coordinator Frank Cignetti, is Pitt going to maybe transition a lot more to the run game and not have their quarterback pass the ball, 45, 50 times a game like the last couple of years with Pickett. Just thoughts on what you've seen from Abanikanda. And, is he a guy, I know this probably sounds dumb after his player of the week performance last week, but is he a guy that you could see realistically being a guy that can be a lead guy as far as 25 plus times a game and still be productive?
Right. Yeah, I think so, man. And what's interesting is, the way that I compared this Pitt team or thought that they would look like was a perfect blend of 2018. If you remember, had 2 1,000-yard backs, and last year a 4,000-yard passer. So thought we'd see a couple of guys around the 700, 750 mark and maybe right about 3,000 passing the football. I knew that running was going to be a big emphasis with Coach Cignetti. It's just what he's always done. It's always been about 60-40, 60 being the run, and that's just what they do. And then, kind of Hammond comes out of nowhere. I had heard great things, but until you see it with your own eyes and the performance that he put on against West Virginia, is he still having a very complimentary role in that game and ultimately a game-sealing, catch that he ran for a touchdown. And then when Hammond goes down, he doesn't miss a beat, and he's right back to being the guy. So he's an absolute weapon. He has showed that he has improved his game with his vision, the cuts that he has made, and able to get out in the field very quickly. And, of course, the passing threat. I mean, that guy's caught like 3 or 4 passes, and they've gone, 15, 20, 25 yards each time. So it's an impressive thing. You got to get that guy the football. I think Coach Powell, really said it best about practice is, we track these guys so well that, if we get them to a certain power output or a certain yardage that they travel in practice, I know that the game might not be as great. So it's really on these coaches to manage that load, to understand what they're going to be asking from them on game day for that output to be maximized and to them to get their full potential. So I think, yes, absolutely, get them 20, plus touches a game, but we've got to take care of him in practice and understand what we're asking for him to do in any given Saturday.
Yeah, and it was the thought maybe more of a versatile offense this year with more of the running game maybe. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Eric Mac Lain joining us from the ACC Network and ESPN here on the Pit Stop. Eric, being a former player, how do you view this when you're a player? Go back to your playing days. Pitt's ranked. Despite the loss, they probably still feel good about themselves. Is this game against Western Michigan, is this one of these games that from a player you overlook a little bit, or is this veteran, or are you not worried that this veteran team, there'll be enough guys to not let this game get away from them?
Mike, I've had this game circled since we lost it a year ago. I've wanted to get back and play these guys for 365 days. I think these guys are going to be jacked up. I truly do. I think that they're going to want to go out there and revenge might be a strong word, but that's essentially what it is. I mean, you think of the position Pittsburgh could have been in a year ago if they do not lose that game. I mean, we're talking about Pitt being in a playoff, winning the ACC as a one-loss
probably
champion.
100%.
They're probably 4. They're probably getting in that thing, especially the way they won and all the hype around Kenny Pickett ending up in New York. So, yeah, man, I'm jacked up to play. I don't think there's no overlooking at all. I think this defense is going to want to put on a show. That they've been, man, so close to being this impactful, change the game, get everything going type of defense in regards to the defensive line. Like those guys were arms around Hendon Hooker, then somehow he squeaks out for a first down. They had, JT a handful of times and just couldn't quite bring him down. So I think this is the week that those guys are saying, okay, we're going to win this game because of us. Like, we're going to go score. We're going to create opportunity. We're going to get the football back for our offense. So, man, that's the mindset I have. And as soon as you asked it, I knew where you were going. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way we're overlooking these cats.
You're also asking a former team captain, Mac Lain, too. Right. So I was going to say, as a former team captain of a championship team, are you even going one step above and going to the defense, going to special teams, going to the coaching staff and being like, I'm a leader of this team. I'm getting everybody amped up, not even just the line or your offense.
100%, man, because we know how important it is because it just happened a year ago. It just happened where this game means everything. Again, I talk about the differences in college football and NFL. I mean, every week is essentially a playoff game in this format that we have right now. You lose and you're done. I mean, if
Pitt loses, they're done for the playoffs.
Yeah, if you lose this game or one in the near future, like, forget about the playoff. I mean, hopefully a New Year's Six, but that's all out the window. So every game matters. Every game is the biggest game. And that's the mindset you want to have, without losing. But certainly that is amplified for the Pitt Panthers right now.
Eric, I do want to ask you here because Pitt has Rhode Island, Virginia Tech. They get into the ACC schedule. But obviously Rhode Island's going to be a similar conversation, if not even more so. That you can't overlook it, but you're figuring to dominate that game. Then you get in the ACC schedule. Virginia Tech, a little bit maybe overrated for some, a little down for others. Georgia Tech, etc. You're figuring to win these games before you really then get into the meat of the schedule and get a true test yet again. It might be a month and a half before a true test after getting away from this game. So for a program that was just in a major bowl game, that has tons of expectations, that want to carry this from just a great season, their best in decades, to a great program, top 15 in the country year in and year out, what do you need to see from Pitt during this quote-unquote easier stretch to make you confident they can win the test tougher games, and if they carry this through, can argue for the playoff, a New Year's Six, an ACC contention, and win the conference again, etc.?
Yeah, man, just for them to flex their muscles. I mean, because we've seen in recent histories, a la last year losing to Western Michigan, a couple of years ago, I think it was Delaware, that it was like a controversial ending, and I don't think Kenny played that game, but these are the type of games where you have to make some noise and like you have to dominate. And I'm not saying score 70 points, hold them to 0, but watching the game, there should be a noticeable talent gap. We should see both lines of scrimmage mauling guys and full control of the game, never even in question. And I think that's what it takes. And it's a mindset, and it's something difficult to do when you're a young kid and man, you want to play night games, and I want to play Tennessee. I want to play West Virginia. Oh, here's Rhode Island. Oh, we have to go to Western Michigan. So it's a mindset. You have to understand how valuable and how, special these moments are, because there's very little of them in your entire life. And I think that, this staff that they have in place, these leaders, Kalijah Cansey, Baldonado, the guys upon the offensive line, like they all, it starts there, spreads throughout the team. Big Brandon Hill at safety. Like those guys are going to have them in a space where they're not overlooking any of that. And they have the mindset of, we have to go out here and show the world, what Pitt football is.
Last question for you, Eric. You obviously follow the whole ACC, not just Pitt. Has there been a team so far through 2 weeks? I know it's tough because the opponents of each team, varies in, the degree of difficulty. But has there been a team that is either maybe caught your eye in a positive way that maybe you weren't maybe expecting, maybe played a little bit better than you thought through 2 weeks?
Yeah, I'll give you two of them. One on the Atlantic and one at Duke. Or Duke, one on the Coastal. Duke and Syracuse, man, have played so well. It's been so fun to watch, and I think that it's instrumental for the league because it's great to have Pittsburgh. It's great to have Clemson and Wake Forest and maybe Miami be at the top, but we need the bottom to rise up too. Like the bottom has to do their part and not go over in a season, and when they get in conference play, get a couple of conference wins, and just have that respect of going out of conference and getting big W's. I mean, Syracuse, they look like a totally different team. I mean, offensively, Garrett Schrader.
Yeah.
I mean, he's right now. I know it's 2 weeks, and this is a super hot take. We're going into week 3, but he's going to be planned to be on an All ACC team at the quarterback position. I mean, it's crazy to see his numbers already. He's over a third of his yards passing. He's over half of his touchdowns. His QBR's through the roof in 2 games, guys. He did that in 13 games, 12 games a year ago, and he's already that much more advanced. Duke, it just looks different. I mean, it's a mindset. It's an attitude. Those guys are playing with swagger. It really reminds me of, kind of the change we saw defensively when Coach Hafley came in to coach Boston College. We're seeing that right away with Duke, and they have a great opportunity going against A&T this weekend to do what we're talking about with Pittsburgh, to flex their muscles. When's the last time we said Duke's going to do that?
Right,
I mean, incredible to see the change.
Unless we're on the basketball court. Yeah.
Exactly. So those are the two, man, that I know it's early and it's probably not the answer you thought, but they look really fun, and it's going to be cool to see, okay, what can we do when conference play really jacks up and ramps up?
It also helps it's a pointless debate, but the whole Twitter debate after a season is over. Yeah, you won a conference, or yeah, you did this, but the conference was quote unquote down.
Right.
That's depth to the conference. So that
Exactly.
would certainly help your argument with other conferences, and also for where you're ranked and where you're slotted in a playoff discussion, certainly in years from now when they do expand, etc. So Eric, I definitely appreciate the time. Good luck on the upcoming birth that could happen any moment.
That's right. I might be getting a call. Oh, I'm just kidding. I appreciate
it. Breaking news here on the Pit Stop. Eric, we definitely appreciate the time, man.
No doubt. Thank you, guys. Have a great show. See y'all.
Absolutely. Bye. Eric Mac Lain from the ACC Network and ESPN joining us here on the Pit Stop on Pittsburgh Sports Now. He's awesome, been with us before. Yeah, he's great. I did a show with him before. He's fantastic. He has the voice for this, even though he was a player who's transitioned. It's like he was born to do broadcasting. But yeah, now switching gears here as we move on from Pitt, we do have some other games throughout the region, in particular headlined by the Steelers and Patriots coming up this weekend that I do want to touch on before we wrap things up. So Mike, to kind of go there, the Steelers are underdogs to the Patriots at home. And this is a Patriots team, Tom Brady's years removed. Mac Jones is the QB. They just got beat up against Miami. They weren't contending at all in that game. The Steelers did win. Granted, some turnovers helped them and crazy kicks, and a long snapper had to come in that wasn't normally the starter. And it was just one of the most bizarre, wild games in Steelers' recent memory, but they did win. They are at home. And yes, there are question marks around this team still, around Mr. Trubisky, etc. But how surprised are you the Patriots, the non-Tom Brady Patriots, years removed still, are favored on the road against a Steelers team that is 1-0, while the Patriots are 0-1?
I want to preface this by saying I don't know what my opinion means, because our picks last week, I think we both, as Mike Tomlin put this week, I think we urinated down our leg.
So did West Virginia, which definitely ruined our picks, by the way.
Yeah, I think we were I think both of us. I think we were 1-3 last week.
Okay.
I think the only ones we got right were Pitt.
I was going to say we had Tennessee.
Yeah,
right,
Tennessee minus the points. That was about it. I know we lost Penn State. And
they won by more. Yeah.
West Virginia and the Steelers. So I think we both.
That's it. Yep.
Well, that being said, that's why you got to continue on here. I was surprised. I'm surprised. I'm still surprised. Steelers 2.5-point underdogs. I know it's the New England Patriots. Blah 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 blah. But they're not the New England Patriots when Tom Brady is not there.
Right.
So I don't see, even without T.J. Watt, I just don't see the weapons on New England's defense or offense. Excuse me. Mac Jones. I don't see him being able to beat this team. I don't see I just don't see playmakers. I can't They just don't have anything play. The only way
they
is
got in the playoffs last year, but it does. Right.
Mitch Trubisky turns over the Steelers turn over the ball and give those guys a shot. I just don't see a lot of points in this game, and I don't see New England scoring a lot of points. I think the Steelers defense is better than New England.
Yeah,
and I think the Steelers win.
They should.
I'm really surprised by this line. I think this is a lot based on, and I know you had mentioned before the show that, Vegas wasn't impressed or maybe didn't think the Steelers should have won the game.
It's because of the turnovers. They don't count when they're doing odds. They don't count turnovers. So if they think you won a game because of turnovers or a player got hurt or a missed field goal, the odds makers don't really quote unquote count it, even though it's a W on the board, which is how the Steelers won last week, to be fair.
I think this line is a Bill Belichick line, a New England
Patriots
line. I just think his reputation and
he could have the defense ready to go and doing what you say. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to win. The Steelers got to win this game with the schedule that's in front of them besides the Jets and Browns. But it's a weird spread. It is a weird spread. This is a worse Patriots team than even last year. Almost everyone thinks so. But unless it's Belichick who's going to muster something up from that defense, cause some turnovers, and maybe run you a Novocaine game plan like he did against the Bills last year, where it was basically just run. We're in like a wishbone, like it's 1950. If that's what Belichick's going to do, maybe that's what the odds makers are thinking. They're going to win this 6-3, and it'll be the worst game we've ever watched. But who knows?
A bookie once told me, one of my friends of the past once told me that a couple of lines to watch are, one of them is when a home team is getting, it has to be the exact 2.5 points. And right now the line's 2.5. If a home team is getting 2.5 points, they'll win the game outright.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go with my old friend John. Won't mention his last name, but
put the money there.
He always
I'll agree with you.
So I'm gonna go with Steelers. And then the other one we got is probably one of the bigger games. I guess maybe the biggest game of the weekend is Miami versus Texas A&M, but Penn State going down to Auburn on CBS, 3:30.
Our biggest game.
Penn State is 3-point favorites. They're giving Auburn 3 points. I have a sneaky feeling that I'm going to take Auburn in this game.
Okay.
Just going down to that environment. I know people are excited about what Penn State has done so far. I don't know how good of teams they've played so far. I think going down to an SEC environment, national TV, I think it's a different animal. Those kids haven't played in an environment like Jordan-Hare Stadium before. No matter what people think Auburn is down, they still have tremendous SEC talent down there, 4-star, 5-star kids. I'm going to go with Auburn to win the game, take the points, but I think they'll win the game outright.
100%. I not to make it boring, I'm right with you. Throw the points out. I don't care. Auburn's going to get the quote-unquote upset win. And what I'll say, and Penn State right now ranked 22, they did not look good against Purdue at all. That's a down program. They're better than them. They should always be better than them, even coming off a miserable year last year for the Nittany Lions. That's not an impressive win, even though you squeaked by with the victory. They could have lost that game 2 or 3 times. Yeah, you beat up on Ohio. Okay, we were wrong. We didn't think you'd win by that much, but you do win by even more. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what we talked about with Eric. You got to flex your muscles in those games. This can be a really, really tough place to play. This will hurt the whole Big Ten debate with the SEC, because if the SEC gets an upset win, that's going to be what they're going to bring up all the time in terms of strength of those 2 power conferences for the future and even now. But at the end of the day, I don't think Penn State is really a ranked team based on what I've seen through 2 games. They haven't impressed me enough to be there. And Auburn does have tons of talent. If this game was maybe in Happy Valley, I might flip it. Yeah. But that is a really, really tough place to play. That's the game of the weekend, at least for our network for sure. And just as we close up shop, there's no spread that we're seeing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Mike, what's West Virginia?
Yeah.
What can they get out of this game? Is there any way that leaving this game, the Mountaineer fans
100%.
Are out for blood right now with, with the program right now and Neil Brown.
Yeah.
Can anything happen in this game that'll quiet people for a week, or is this just a glorified practice?
Well, number one, Mike, you'll really like this because this literally teases an article that I just put up on WV Sports Now. So head over
good.
there. I detailed the whole thing. There are a few keys that they can do. Number one, they got to dominate the game. There's no spread because nobody should bet on this. This is just West Virginia should go dominate this game. Yeah, maybe they should have beat Kansas. Maybe they're better than who they thought. It was a really, really bad loss. Worst loss the Neil Brown era. And his future is a whole conversation for the day, but it's not looking good for him right now. But you got to dominate this game. You just got to. This isn't Appalachian State, Mike. It's a 4-7 Townsend team from a year ago. They're coming to your place for homecoming, not just a regular game. You got to win. You got to win big. They did it to LIU. That's the only game they ever have dominated under Neil Brown, and that was an FCS team as well. You got to dominate. I got to see more from the defense. The defensive line and defense looked really good against Pitt, holding that offense down for a while, making that a close game. Dante Stills almost wrecked the game, the 5 sacks. They didn't look good against Kansas at all. Letting Jalen Daniels just run all over the place. And that Kansas offense, I think they would have kept on scoring if they played 7 or 8 quarters when I was there. So the defense for West Virginia has to really, really show something, because even here in those post-game pressers, you don't want to say it. Mike, you've been around long enough that you know when a player doesn't want to throw a teammate under the bus, is trying to toe the line. That was what JT Daniels was doing when he was saying the dumb mistakes. He was talking about all of us. He kept saying we made dumb mistakes. I want to preface all of us. He's saying defense, what the hell? Like, I just put up 42 points and you're out of position. The RPOs are nothing that you can deal with. The defense lost that game. There's no way to be mad at one punt throughout a game, 300 plus yards and 42 points. It's ridiculous with a new offense. So the defense got to step up. I got to see more from the running game, offensive line. I touched on it all on the article there. But they can do things besides just winning, and they can't just win. Just winning by a touchdown or 2, no. They got to dominate, and they got to show some things, because Blacksburg will not be easy. And there are some projectors that say West Virginia is going to go 1-11 with the win over Townsend be the only victory. And Mike, for the 15th winningest program in college football history, that would be the single worst season in the history of the program. That's insane. That's insanity. So that's what could happen.
Yeah, this doesn't help that Marshall goes out and beats.
Right. They have they're 2-0. They have the win over Notre Dame. Of course, it's apples to.
It's apples, but it's in the state. You know,
right. Yeah. No, it doesn't.
The state is feeling good. The other one is
right. 100%.
So,
too bad this is the year they don't play for that side of the state, because if they played this year, you never know. West Virginia could lose to anybody, but this is not a year that they don't play. But anything else, Mike?
No.
Okay.
All the coverage this weekend. Carl will be in Kalamazoo. Joe will have it covered remotely from Penn State, and you'll have things in
I'll be in
West
Morgantown,
Virginia, and Alan will be over at Acrisure Stadium. So we'll have everything covered here on the network, and we'll see what happens. Should be interesting. Obviously, West Virginia is going to win. They're not, but for the other 2 programs, we'll see what happens with Pitt and Penn State. I think it'll be tests in different ways for both of those guys.
Yeah, to say the very, very, very least. But again, Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti, thanks again to our guest, Mac Lain of ACC Network and ESPN. That's it. No longer need to pull over. That was another edition of the Pitch Stop here on Pittsburgh Sports Now.